Hey there. Thanks for joining me for the Daily Word. Today we are going to be in Acts chapter 6, short chapter. So if you haven't read it yet, go read it and come back, and I want to walk you through the details of Acts chapter 6. So what you need to see from this passage is that the difficulties continue for the early church. It wasn't puppy dogs and ice cream. It wasn't everything is great and safe, and they're just living on a comfort island and everything is just so easy. It's far from that. They're facing a number of difficulties both in the church and outside the church, and Acts chapter 6 is no different. It starts, so to kind of summarize this first section, we'll call it delegation. Chapter 6 verses 1 to 7, delegation. Okay, so the numbers are increasing in the church. There's somewhere between 5 and 15,000 people who are part of the church in Jerusalem at this time. And people were feeling left out. People probably were getting left out. And so notice that they gave the leaders an opportunity to fix the problem. They presented the problem to the apostles, and the apostles got the opportunity to address it and fix it. The apostles recognized that they had priorities. Notice you see that in verse 4, our priorities to devote ourselves to prayer and the ministry of the word. And so we're going to look for people who are faithful and godly in order to take care of some of the details that needed to be taken care of. So they are to do what only they can do, and then find others to do things that other people are able to do. So that verse 4, they're able to devote themselves to the things that they need to do. So the apostles gave leadership, the people followed that leadership, and they chose godly men to serve the people, to serve the widows who were being overlooked, it says there in verse 1. And so verse 7, as a result of all that, the word of God kept on spreading, and the number of disciples continued to increase greatly in Jerusalem, and a great many of the priests were becoming obedient to the faith. And so throughout this book so far, Luke is highlighting that the decisions that were being made to purge sin in chapter 5, to stand up for the truth in chapter 4 and chapter 5, to delegate responsibility in chapter 6, all of that led to a larger and larger church, more and more people coming to know Christ in salvation. And that's the goal of every church. We want to be able to see people get saved. People are going to hell. Jesus died to rescue people from that, and we are the agents that he uses to accomplish that. You see that happening here. Then from delegation, we look at deception. Chapter 6, verses 8 to the end. This is deception outside of the church. Stephen was one of those who were appointed to help the widows. It says in verse 5 that he is full of faith in the Spirit. It says in verse 8 that he's full of grace and power. He had a great testimony of his Christian character. There was no question that he was a godly man. And so he was lied about by the Jews that he was refuting with the truth. Verse 10 says they were unable to cope with the wisdom and the spirit with which Stephen was speaking. And so again, jealousy prompts them to persecution. And Stephen is arrested under false charges, just like who was arrested under false charges because of jealousy of the religious leaders? That's right, Jesus. If a persecution tactic ain't broke, don't fix it. False charges, trumped up charges, lies spread about Christians leading to their persecution and marginalization still, again, continues to this day. Verse 9 says he debated the Jews from Cilicia. And what we find is that region is a place that another persecutor of Christians is from. His name was Saul, later became the Apostle Paul. Maybe Paul was one of those who were debating and being decimated by Stephen's arguments. Who knows? But he was there. Verse 15. And fixing their gaze on him, all who were sitting in the council saw Stephen's face like the face of an angel. What that is probably God giving testimony, visual testimony, that he is with Stephen. Only God could do something like that. So everybody there would see that and say that's God's stamp of approval on him. But it's going to get twisted, obviously, and going to be twisted and said, no, that's actually, they would say at that moment probably that's demonic. And so difficulty marked Jesus' ministry. Difficulty marked the ministry of the early apostles. And listen, difficulty is going to mark our ministries as well. Turn to John 15. I know we looked at this a few days ago, but it's important to come back to this. John 15, verse 19. If you were of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, because of this, the world hates you. You're identified with me. That's why the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a slave is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will keep yours also. But all these things they will do to you for my name's sake, because they do not know the one who sent me. While evangelicals are running around trying to win the world by being like the world, by adopting their ideologies, by adopting their theologies, by adopting their point of view in order to try to win them. If you like me, you'll like Jesus. We see the exact opposite from them. The goal is to be faithful to Jesus, whether in season or out of season, whether the world embraces faithfulness to Jesus or is repulsed by faithfulness to Jesus. It doesn't matter. Christian, you stay faithful. Doesn't mean you be a jerk, right? Because it's truth and love. It's grace and truth. It's not either or, it's both and. But you, Christian, me, we have to be ready and willing and embracing the fact that we are not going to be liked in this world. I got off the phone today with a brother in another state calling me saying, brother, pastor, I need some help. I'm taking hits from my own family for standing up for the truth, and here's what I did. Did I do something wrong? No, he didn't do anything. He had the right attitude, the right heart, and the right words. And his family is embraced false doctrine, and they're attacking him, his wife, and his kids. And the response is, that's how they treated our Savior. That's how the world's going to treat us too. Don't try to run from it. Embrace it. This is where it's hard. This is where it's difficult. After a few decades, we're done here, and then we enter a place where there is never going to be any difficulty again. And in those moments, as you enter that world, what will be most important is, were you faithful? Were you faithful to the work that God had given you to do in this world? We're going to see chapter 7. Stephen, a man who was faithful in his generation, paid dearly for that. And we just have to remember, we are not special. We may have to do the same. I hope that was helpful to understand what's happening in the book of Acts and what's happening in our time today. See you next time for another